A growing number of people have reached out to the NBC2 investigators complaining they've lost thousands of dollars to contractors and little to nothing has been done to the perpetrator.
This week, NBC2 investigators David Hodges and Rachel Polansky go in depth with complaints of unfinished businesses, questioning the system that's supposed to hold contractors accountable.
Vacant lots.
What did we do wrong?
Half-built houses.
Terrible. Terrible.
Thousands spent with little or nothing to show for it.
There is no shortage of construction in the Sunshine State.
That's right. Projects are constantly popping up. In fact, the number of employees in contracting is as high as it's been since 2011.
And while you can trust most of those licensed contractors, there are some who will leave projects unfinished and their customers out tens of thousands of dollars.
We know because we've done so many stories on them. And these new victims often call us asking for help.
Most of the time, it sounded legitimate to all of us because
I believed him.
Bob Madaio, Debbie Hampton, and Jim Mueller all live on Marco Island.
That's where we always wanted to be.
They all hired the same contractor to build a new home.
Joyce loved the model. He had a beautiful model.
But they tell me Steve Hannell didn't finish the job.
I mean, is he stealing from you?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Seems to me. Absolutely.
They're 3 of 8 different customers we've talked to who say they had a similar experience with Hannell. After making deposits and draws, his customers complain construction moved at a snail's pace. City records confirm projects lasted years longer than contracted.
It just dragged on and on and on.
Subcontractors claim they weren't getting paid. Under Florida law, the way to fix that is to file liens on the properties.
There was actually 4 liens, I think, against my house.
The contractors started calling me and telling me they were going to put a lien against my house because it hadn't been paid.
We have $115,000 worth of liens on our home today.
Eventually, those homeowners found someone else to finish their homes.
My house was supposed to cost in the upper 800s, and I wound up spending 1.1 plus.
In total, 4 complaints have been filed with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation against him. NBC2 has records showing DBPR closed all 4 of those cases, saying there wasn't enough evidence to support a violation. We also asked the Collier County Sheriff's Office if they were investigating Hannell. In a statement, they said, records and documents have been subpoenaed, and we are actively investigating multiple allegations against a licensed contractor.
Hi, Mr. Hannell.
We tried tracking down Steve Hannell to answer our questions.
All the money was allocated to business. None of it went in my pocket.
Was it allocated to the jobs from the people who paid it?
Yes.
You know, if it's not, it's potentially illegal.
Yes.
But this routine of chasing down contractors feels all too familiar for the NBC2 investigators. That's because we've already done it several times.
What do you have to say to all the people you ripped off? Mr. Cheney. More than a dozen people tell me that builder Chris Cheney of Southern Premier took their money and never finished their homes. In addition to several lawsuits, I also found complaints filed with DBPR and the Cape Coral Police.
He should go to jail. I mean, that is just out and out fraud.
Please tell me where the money went. What happened on these projects?
And at least 15 customers sued Chris Pascal of Bonita Springs floor covering, accusing him of taking their deposits while leaving their projects incomplete.
Why will Walter not speak to us directly?
Well, Walter he's very busy.
We also interviewed nearly a dozen people who say their pools were left unfinished by Walter Rowley of Sand Dollar Pool and Spa.
So we're at like $20,000.
We're out about $24,000.
$8,000.
When we add up all of these customer claims, it comes to more than $1 million. And we're only talking about the contractors we covered here on NBC2 in the last 2 years.
All of these contractors were at one point licensed or qualified through someone else's license with the state. And the homeowners came to us wanting to know if they're being held accountable.
Tomorrow, I'll question those in authority to find out why these licensed contractors have not been arrested, charged, or jailed.
And on Friday, I'll dive into the state's regulatory system to see if homeowners' complaints are being taken seriously, and I'll let you know how you can get your money back. For the NBC2 Investigators, I'm David Hodges.
And I'm Rachel Polansky.
Unfinished business in Southwest Florida. Contractors accused of taking money but not finishing the job.
It's by far the biggest complaint that comes to the NBC2 investigators.
Do you think that's a problem?
Absolutely.
Tonight, we assemble and listen to viewers who say they are powerless victims, and the NBC2 investigators take their complaints to those we trust to hold contractors accountable.
They are telling us their stories in hopes of helping others.
NBC2 investigator Rachel Polansky is here with what we've uncovered.
8 different people.
I just wanted a pool for my young daughter and son.
Sold 8 different dreams.
And he basically started a little bit of the work, and then after the hurricane, never came back.
That they say turned into nightmares.
It's a modern day stick up, you know. Right. They just don't have a gun.
So how much money have you lost throughout this ordeal?
$15,000.
We were down $23,000.
These people claim that 3 different licensed Southwest Florida contractors took their money but didn't finish their projects.
We had liens that exceeded $100,000.
We lost around $40,000.
All 8 filed complaints through the state, the Attorney General's office, or local law enforcement.
It's a serious situation in Florida that something has to be done.
But none of the 3 business owners in question, Christopher Cheney of Southern Premier, Walter Rowley of Sand Dollar Pool and Spa, or Stephen Hunnell, a Marco Island builder, have been arrested, charged, or jailed. A check on their records reveals that Cheney's license is now listed as inactive. Rowley, who was licensed through another man, is now listed as relinquished, and Hunnell still has an active license, although Collier County Sheriff's Office tells NBC2 that they are investigating.
There's no convictions for them. There's no repercussion for their actions, and there really has to be.
2 of these 3 contractors ran their businesses out of Cape Coral, so we took our questions straight to KPD's Corporal Philip Mullen.
So do you think law enforcement is doing everything they can to hold these bad contractors accountable?
I do. Unfortunately, it is a complicated statute, but we can't deal in civil law. We only deal in criminal law.
He's right. Many contractor disputes are civil, but when the NBC2 investigators went to work reading through Florida law, we found Statute 713, also known as the construction lien law. And one provision of that law, 713.345, says if a contractor misuses a construction payment, there are criminal penalties. Real estate attorney Kevin Drzezinski confirms it's a felony.
There is teeth in the law for the people, but the question is whether there is enforced as something that has to be answered by the state attorney or the sheriff's department, how they deal with that.
So we went back to our Southwest Florida law enforcement agencies asking for all incident reports involving Statute 713 for the last 2 years, as well as any other incident report in which a person was arrested regarding contracting work. Fort Myers, Naples, and KPD had 0 reports. The Collier and Charlotte County Sheriff's Offices also had 0, and the Lee County Sheriff's Office had 2 arrests related to contracting fraud. One of those 2 cases has since been dropped by the state attorney's office.
And victims want to know, why aren't police arresting these guys?
Well, from a law enforcement perspective, it starts at the road, of course. Your patrol officer is going to come out and take that complaint. They have to determine whether there's probable cause for an arrest.
It just seems, though, with all these people saying the same thing and having the same stories, it looks like it fits the statute. You know, why does it take so long? You know, why doesn't it fit the statute?
It's a matter of, like I said, we send the warrant request to the state, and we package together the best case we can if we determine that, yes, we believe this rises to the level of a crime, but we have to send it to the state for a filing decision. At that point, you know, we just have to wait to see what comes back from the state.
So we called and emailed our state attorney's office, requesting the total number of complaints or warrant requests involving Florida Statute 713 for the last 2 years. Spokesperson Samantha Sion told me, quote, "There were no public records under that statute. That statute was utilized one time and it is not a public record," end quote. She went on to tell me that the Economics Crimes Unit has had 72 convictions in the last year, none related to contractor fraud.
Do you think that's a problem?
Absolutely.
Definitely sounds like it's a problem.
What would you say to law enforcement? What would you say to the state attorney's office when it comes to contractor fraud?
It's theft.
It's theft.
They proved that they stole money. Arrest them. Put them through, do that a couple of times and people would stop doing it so much.
Right, make an example of a few, and then the contractors would think twice about taking your money and just pocketing it.
Through public record requests, I also confirmed that 28 Lee, Collier, and Charlotte County contractors lost their licenses over the last 2 years. When I ran their names through court records, I confirmed that 0 faced criminal charges related to contracting fraud. Kelly?
Unbelievable. Rachel, is there ever any hope for these poor people to get their money back?
Well, it's not easy, but it can be done. My colleague David Hodges talked with a woman who just did it. He also tracked down state regulators to question how they're handling these types of issues. We'll have that part of the story for you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. For the NBC2 Investigators, I'm Rachel Polansky.
Contractors accused of taking money but not finishing the job. The NBC2 investigators continue to dig for answers on the #1 issue for which viewers come to us seeking help. Last night at 6, a group who felt conned by their contractors questioned if law enforcement does everything they can by law to hold the contractors accountable. Tonight, NBC2 investigator David Hodges questions the agency that gives contractors their licenses and finds out how you can get your money back.
This is a complaint form with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Consumers will file one of these when they've had an issue with a licensed contractor. I've spoken with 4 people who've had a complaint against this man. All of those complaints have been rejected. Hi, Mr. Hanel.
This is Steve Hanel, a certified general contractor and home builder on Marco Island.
We want to talk with you about 8 customers you have who are a little bit upset about their housing projects.
Okay.
Do you have a minute to talk to me about that?
I'd rather not do a on-camera interview.
At this point, he's not being held accountable.
Hanel's customers had no problem going on camera, including Joe Rocco and David Cordy.
We liked Steve a lot. We liked his ideas.
They both hired Hanel for major housing renovations. NBC2 spoke with 6 other people who also worked with him, and they tell me they all ran into nearly the exact same issue.
He paid none of the subcontractors, 0.
Rocco, Cordy, and the other homeowners had more than $500,000 of liens placed against their homes by subcontractors trying to force payment. But the homeowners all have records showing they were making timely payments to Hanel.
And I don't have the money.
Is the money not there because you're doing something different with it?
No. All the money was allocated to business. None of it went in my pocket.
Hanel denied to me that he was aware of any liens filed on the properties.
You're saying you're not aware of any liens, but we both know there are.
I am not aware of any liens. There are none as we speak. And if you think I'm doing something criminal, then, they would have to prove that.
The Collier County Sheriff's Office told me they have received a complaint against Hanel, and in an email they said they are investigating. 4 of the homeowners, including Rocco and Cordy, also filed complaints with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation to get Hanel's license revoked.
And we want to make sure nobody else gets hurt by this person.
NBC2 has records showing DBPR turned down all 4 complaints, saying the evidence submitted isn't enough to find a violation. Rocco and Cordy were never given a chance to make their case in person. They have no idea what evidence Hanel or his attorney presented to get the complaints dismissed. Rocco began emailing DBPR for answers, getting this response from the Deputy General Counsel. When the facts are in dispute and the issues revolve around contractual agreements and conflicting statements, such as who paid whom, we are unable to sort those out. I went to work checking that claim out and found it's not the case. Florida law says that if liens are placed against a customer's property for services they paid for, DBPR can fine the contractor and even revoke his license. I requested an interview with the Construction Industry Licensing Board Director, Dan Biggins. The communications staff turned down my request several times. So we tracked Biggins down at a Construction Licensing Board meeting at the Biltmore Hotel in Miami.
Could you answer for me why probable cause when it's not found, why those complaints aren't then shared with the people who originally filed the complaints?
Biggins told me 10 different times to send my questions to their communications office.
Like I said, if you can talk to our communications office, it's just how we have it set up. You've got to go through the communications office.
Well, you could answer this for me right now, couldn't you?
Afterwards, a spokesperson for DBPR sent us a statement saying protecting the public and assisting eligible recovering consumers is a top priority for the department.
As far as you know, is there an issue with enforcement of what's currently on the books? I mean, could it be looked at harder?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I do know that there are pockets of this around the state.
I showed State Senator Kathleen Pasadomo the email saying DBPR was powerless to investigate the financial claims like those against Hanel.
I don't agree that determining whether or not somebody was paid or not paid, because the upshot was liens were placed on these properties.
Right. Pasadomo told us she plans on talking with DBPR about the complaint process.
At least the complainant should have the ability to participate in the hearing.
Many DBPR complainants are successful. Lisa Johnson filed a complaint against Chris Chaney and Southern Premier after her home was never built. She received $15,000 from the recovery fund by being persistent with her complaint and keeping meticulous records. Tina Halm and Michael Steinke also filed complaints against Sand Dollar Pool and Spa the company relinquished its license. But even those three feel the process could be easier and more transparent.
We have to have somebody to help us through this process. We've got nothing. It's almost like the laws and the statutes are there to protect the contractors.
This can't have been simply a big secret that's gone on for 20 or 30 or 40 years. I think it's something that's just been ignored, and I don't know why.
We plan on following up with Senator Pasadomo to see if DBPR changes any of its policies. We also want to help you. So what I've done is shot a video and put it online. We'll show you how to look up a licensee and see if there are any liens against their current projects. That's all on our website, NBC2.com. Just go to the Investigators tab and click on this story. For the NBC2 Investigators, I'm David Hodges.
Our investigative team did really good work with that three-part series. I highly recommend, if you missed one of them, just go to our website. You can find all three stories. They were excellent journalism.
Cape Coral police arrest a contractor for fraud. Christopher Cheney, owner of Southern Premier, is charged after dozens of people told the NBC2 investigators he took their money but didn't do the work.
The NBC2 investigators began reporting on Cheney 1 year ago. Then, less than 2 weeks ago, we pushed the story forward, questioning why Cheney and other accused contractors are rarely arrested or charged. NBC2 investigator Rachel Polansky is live in Cape Coral. Rachel, what do we know about why Cheney was just arrested?
A CCPD spokesperson tells me that the agency sent a warrant request to the state attorney's office for Cheney's arrest back in February. Well, that warrant request was approved today.
What do you have to say to all the people you ripped off? Mr. Cheney.
More than a dozen people have told me that builder Chris Cheney, former owner of Southern Premier, took their money but never finished their homes. Tonight, Cheney is being charged with fraud for obtaining property $50,000 or more.
It's been a long time coming.
Lisa Johnson is one of Cheney's former customers. She told me that she paid him $15,000. When he did not do the work, she filed a complaint through the state, the Attorney General's office, and Cape Coral Police. We told her about his arrest this afternoon.
I hope that he will be able to face all of the music and in some way have to repay either some of his victims or the state of Florida that has already paid out some claims on his behalf.
Chris Cheney will have his first appearance tomorrow morning, and I will be there. If he is found guilty of this charge, it is a first-degree felony. Reporting live tonight in Cape Coral for NBC2 Investigators, I'm Rachel.
Tonight, the NBC2 investigators tracked down a Cape Coral contractor arrested for fraud. Good evening, I'm Peter Bush.
And I'm Kelly Burns. We first exposed customer complaints against Southern Premier owner Chris Cheney a year ago, then went in depth 2 weeks ago with a series of stories on contractors, including Cheney, accused of taking money for jobs not completed. Cheney bonded out of jail last night. So NBC2 investigator Rachel Polansky went to his home today to see if he wanted to defend himself.
Yeah, this was the first time I've been to Cheney's home to try and get an interview. Over the last year, I've talked with about a dozen people who say he took thousands of dollars from them. But today was the first time he's ever uttered a word to me. Talk to us, Mr. Cheney.
Come on my property.
You've been charged with scheme to defraud. Mr. Cheney. Home builder Chris Cheney shut the door on the NBC2 investigators and a chance to explain his side of the story. 17 people complained to the state licensing board and 11 to Cape Coral Police that he took their money but didn't finish the work. Many of them came to NBC2 for help. So how much money have you lost throughout this ordeal?
$15,000.
We lost around $40,000.
Cheney is charged with one count of scheme to defraud by obtaining property valuing $50,000 or more. Through an attorney connected to the case, I got a hold of this 50-page warrant request sent to the state attorney's office by Cape Coral Police back in February. In it, a detective told prosecutors that Cheney took more than $700,000 for contracting work that he used for other purposes. Detective Megan Hicks wrote that Cheney, quote, engaged in a systematic and ongoing course of conduct with the intent to defraud multiple parties, end quote. Also in the report, one of Cheney's former employees said that Cheney was, quote, always $1 million in the hole. Another said, quote, I knew he was screwing people over, and I did what he told me to do, and I didn't like it, end quote.
I've been waiting for the day, and I thought the day would come, and I'm just so glad that it did.
Lisa Johnson is one of Cheney's former customers. She paid him $15,000. When he didn't do the work, she filed complaints through the state,
the Attorney General's office, and Cape Coral Police. When we told her about Cheney's arrest, she said it was a long time coming.
I hope that he will be able to face all of the music and in some way have to repay either some of his victims or the state of Florida that has already paid out some claims on his behalf.
Now, I've asked the state attorney's office if more charges could be added against Cheney. I haven't got that answer yet. Cheney is scheduled to return to court on Monday. For the NBC2 Investigators, I'm Rachel Polansky.